Hello everyone, my name's Cliff and welcome back to my channel. This is Cliff's Dark Gems. And if you're new here, welcome for the first time. I hope you enjoy yourselves. Today we're going to do my April wrap-up, reading wrap-up, and it should be good. Stay tuned. Okay everyone, I'm going to be completely honest. April has not been the best reading month for me. I've only managed to read 7 books, and there's quite a few reasons for that. First of all, we were kind of both ill with a bit of a virus. It was maybe 1 or 2 or 3 days. Maybe it doesn't seem like much. And then also we had family coming over at the beginning of April, so that was a kind of no-go. And other stuff that happened as well. And 2 days ago, just to let you know, Layla, our German Shepherd, absolutely loves to go swimming, but then she comes into the house and she wets the towels all over the place. So what actually happened 2 days ago is I slipped, and all 140 kilograms of me landed on my right knee, and yeah, it was kind of ouch. I'm not sure if I've got a hairline fracture, but I'm on pain pills and, anti-inflammatories. And yeah, so it hasn't been a very good couple of days for me. So I was hoping to get to read a bit more, but that's okay. I'm going to tell you about these 7 books right now. And of course they ordered from my least favorite to my favorite. Okay, starting off with my least favorite. Now Richard Lehman is hit or miss for me, and this was definitely more of a miss. That was Richard Lehman, The Woods Are Dark. And I heard this was a cannibal tale. It's kind of like a almost off-season kind of thing. Although, as I'm going to say later, there's absolutely no freaking comparison. And I'm afraid I didn't find it particularly good. I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads, 2.5 rounded up to 3, because it was entertaining enough. But I have to say the characters were very one-dimensional. Even the monsters, even these kind of mutant inbred cannibals, whatever they were in the woods, weren't very effective. But I think the worst part of the book for me was that Lehman is known for being over-sexual and writing about women's breasts and writing about sex in such a way that's just cringeworthy sometimes. And I have to say in this particular book that almost every page, or almost every second page, it ended up that I was just laughing hysterically. Even if something terrible was happening to these women, because you didn't really know them. You only really knew them on a sexual level and what these creatures were doing to them. So it was kind of took away from the tension, it took away from the suspense, and there was a little bit of that, to be fair. There were some fast moving scenes, exciting, quite tense, suspenseful, but yeah, just way too much, even by layman terms, of the sex, and just the trigger warnings for rape, and yeah, multiple uses of the words nipples, multiple uses of the words breast, and sweaty breasts, and all sorts of stuff that he comes up with. I don't know. So yeah, it wasn't really for me. I have to say I found it entertaining, in a kind of like, if you watch B movies, kind of old school B movies where there's more nudity and violence and sex and not much of a story, I found that kind of entertaining. But if you want something absolutely terrifying, then you need to read Off Season, and not The Woods Are Dark by Richard Lehman. Next up we have Ray Bradbury, I Sing the Body Electric. Now this is a gorgeous cover, as you can see, and look, I love his writing in every single book that I've ever read by him. It's just so imaginative. The writing is so sublime, poetical. But these stories were a very mixed bag for me, and there was only a handful that I really enjoyed. and I'm going to mention some of them. The first being the title story, I Sing the Body Electric, and it's about this robot grandma who is programmed to take care of these kids, and she's just super awesome and wonderful, and the kids take a shine to her. The girl doesn't at first, but eventually. But it's just a fantastical, imaginative, original story, and I absolutely loved it, and I loved where it went as well. Another story that I really enjoyed, I'm actually going to take my notes here, is The Lost City of Mars, which is very interesting. Guess what? It's about a lost city in a future that no one can find on Mars. So these intrepid explorers, all kinds of different people, and they travel by water, and they find the lost city, and it gets kind of strange and kind of chaotic, very weird from there, and I was there for it. It was a lot of fun, and yeah, those are two of my favorite stories by him. I also really enjoyed, what was the other ones? Actually, look inside here. Not very well prepared on account of my knee. So the next story was Tomorrow's Child, which is where this couple gives birth to a blue triangle, and it gets very, very weird. I can't really say too much about the story without giving things away, but yeah, it's a normal baby, but it's a blue triangle, and the couple has a choice to make about what's going to happen and how they're going to go forward from here. So it's kind of bizarre. I also really liked a story called, where was it? Night Call Collect. A very, very lonely story about kind of the last man, and he's on Mars and he's sitting by a telephone and his old cell phone's infinite. It's another, all of these stories are strange, science fiction, but I found this kind of, yeah, it hits you kind of hard. It's a tale of loneliness, but also just, I don't really know how to describe it. This is very, very strange. And I have to say it's not my best collection by him. If you want to start with Ray Bradbury, I would go with maybe The Golden Apples of the Sun or The Illustrated Man, two of my favorite. I haven't read all of The Halloween Tree, no, what is it? Something about The October Country. I haven't read all of that collection yet. But I plan to, but he's still one of my favorite authors. Yeah, and this is worth a go. That is, I Sing the Body Electric. Okay, next up now we're moving to kind of 3-star territory, 3.5 star, and that is Saculina by Philip Fracassi. Now, I kind of expected more from this novella, but it was still very entertaining. And it's about these two brothers, one of which has just got out of jail, and the jailbird's best friend, and the father, and they go on a fishing charter together to celebrate the fact that the son had been released from jail. And a lot of flashbacks to the family's past, where the mother died a very slow, painful death. And anyway, they go out on this fishing charter and things go very wrong for them. There's these strange creatures that rise up from the ocean depths. But to be honest, I was expecting a lot more from the story. Judging by the cover and judging by something that happens in the beginning, these huge bubbles. I'm not going to say anything more. I just expected more from the sea creatures. But there was some very good grotesque stuff, grotesque imagery, and there was some excellent body horror. And I have to say that the story is very original, which I give points for, and all in all it was quite an entertaining read. But it just left me wanting a little bit more. So that is Saculina. Okay, next up we have Obsidian Murders, and that is by Nicole Broner, and that's an alias, and this is kind of my friend and my fellow booktuber, Nicole, from Nicole's Bookish Nook, and it was a lot of fun. I was just reading outside of my comfort zone for once, and for what it was really enjoyable. It was kind of a murder mystery, a paranormal murder mystery, thankfully without any sex, which I kind of think ruins the whole erotic thing, ruins a lot of those books. Well, I wouldn't know, but I would presume. And anyway, it's about this wannabe journalist who teams up with a 500-year-old vampire, and they're kind of investigating the murder of these women outside of these otherworldly portals. And yeah, they team up, and the story has werewolves, it has fairies, it has all sorts of strange and wonderful creatures, and all in all it's like really just a really light-hearted, fun adventure mystery with a lot of fantasy elements, and I enjoyed myself. I'm not going to say too much more about it. It was outside my comfort zone, but I give it 3.5 stars, 4 stars rounded up, just for being fun. Okay, next up, 4 stars, we get Wormwood from Chad Lutzke and Tim Mayer. Now I have to say, it's not as good as Chad Lutzke's other novellas that I've read in the past year. And I said in my previous sort of review, when I did my kind of wrap-up, not my wrap-up, my monthly update, is that this book, because it was 2 different authors coming together, it just didn't work for me. Sometimes it does, like if you look at The Talisman, Stephen King and Peter Straub, that really worked for me. But these 2 different voices just didn't work completely for me. It was still a great story, but for me it lacked the horror kind of with heart that I expect from Chad Lutzke. That's not to say that Tim Mayer is not a bad author. I'm still going to read his books because I enjoyed this. But yeah, it just lacked a little bit for me. Saying all that, it's a coming-of-age story about a young boy who's used to being uprooted the whole time. He travels from place to place because his mother, it's all about where the work takes her. And he gets in with the wrong crowd, let's just say that. He meets an older girl, he falls for her, but it leads down a very dark path. And yeah, it's fun and has a lot of lessons to be learned by the end, but it just didn't do it for me like, let's say, Skullface Boy, which I've talked about again and again on this channel, because it's just brilliant. So yeah, that is Wormwood by Chad Lutzke and Tim Mayer. Okay, and the 6th book I read, which was an excellent 4 stars, is a horror novella collection by Stephen King called If It Bleeds. And I read this because of my All About Holly adventure, and yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed all of the novellas, some more than others. And I'm going to go through them in order from my least favourite to my favourite. First one being The Life of Chuck. Now, this was just a very weird book, a very weird story, with a narrative that is like kind of part 3 to part 1 to part 2, that kind of thing. And I can't really say much about the story without giving the whole thing away. So but it is worth a read, but very unusual. And I'm not going to even say what the main concept is. The next one is Rat. That's very interesting, where author wants to complete a novel, his first novel. And he tried previously, but it kind of drove him mad and drove his family mad, and he had a huge issue, had all sorts of personal issues as a result of that experience. And now he's determined, he's got this brilliant idea, and he goes off into the woods to write this novel. And he's throwing great guns, and then he gets sick, and then a blizzard, huge storm hits where he is, a kind of cabin in the woods. And I'm not going to tell you about what happens after that, you need to read more. But it's a very intriguing story, and I love how Stephen King constantly, time and time again, comes back on the writing process and on the whole author thing. It was very, very interesting. The next one I'm going to talk about, my second favourite, is Mr. Harrigan's Phone, where this boy kind of forms a relationship with this older guy, who's a very rich guy, kind of works in the garden for him. They sort of form a friendship. And this boy ends up giving this iPhone to this older man, and then he dies. And I'm not going to say anything more. It gets very creepy. It's a good horror, kind of mixed with technology, and I really enjoyed it. It was actually good stuff. And finally, If It Bleeds. And what I loved about this was Holly took center stage. And it's kind of a murder mystery horror story, and It's all about the title. If it leads, and there's something missing there, it leads. And the idea is that when there's a terrible accident, a terrible catastrophe, like a school blowing up, there's always going to be reporters at the scene, right in the head of the scene, taking down what's happening, getting in the midst of the action. And that's kind of the concept behind this whole novella. And yeah, I found it very creepy. It's kind of the sequel to The Outsider, not formally so, but it's good to read The Outsider first, because it sort of deals with another kind of outsider. It preys on human fear and human emotions. Yeah, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, highly recommend it. That is, If It Bleeds. Okay, and finally, my favourite read of the month, and very close to 5 stars, maybe 4.5 stars. I rounded it down on Goodreads, but I'll reread one day if I ever decide to. Could just reach that 5-star mark. And that is A Cipher by Kathy Koja, a new author for me. Now this book is dirty, it's grungy, it's sort of despicable characters. The narrative is strange, kind of, especially towards the end, it's kind of stream of consciousness that told from this one character's point of view, who's undergoing, let's just say, change. I hope that's not a spoiler. But anyway, yeah, it takes place in this dingy old apartment. Down this passageway in this storage room, there's a black hole. And it's like this black hole where these two characters, you have like an on and off again relationship, sort of sexual relationship, and they're both messed up, but the woman especially so. And I'll just have to tell you about where this guy lives in this apartment. His particular apartment is like a bomb's hit it. And it reminds me of when I was at university. And when you, first, second year university, and I was in, not digs, I was in a sort of university hall, you know, where you all stay. But there were also digs where people afford, sort of spend money on their own rental for their own place. And some of the places I went to when I was a first year, second year university reminded me of this place. Ashtrays overflowing, burn marks everywhere, empty alcohol bottles, and other things, smell of other stronger stuff and drugs, and just a complete and utter mess. And it's dingy and it's grungy and it's like 90s. And anyway, there's all these other characters that come into it as well. But let's get back to the black hole. So at the end of the thing is a black hole, and this woman, who's in a relationship with this guy, who's a narrator, starts throwing things into the black hole. Like she starts with some bugs, and they come back mutated, they come back changed. And she becomes obsessed with this whole process. And even turned on to the point where they kind of, it's not a spoiler, it happened very quickly, they kind of get it on in the cupboard. And then she sort of goes from bugs to other things, and then she invites friends and other people come in, and it becomes this bizarre obsession, this black hole. And all I can say is there's some very grotesque imagery, there's some very nightmarish body horror that goes on. The story itself is not very good in terms of a narrative from beginning to end and a story, but it's a bizarre experience, a bit of a mind trip, and I enjoyed it for what it was. And I'm definitely going to pick up this author again. So yeah, that is The Cipher by Kathy Koja. Okay everyone, those are the books that I read for the month of April. Not many, but hey, that's what happens. Some months you just are busier with all sorts of stuff than others. So let me know what you read down in the dark comments below. Let me know what you think of the books I've read. I'd love to hear from you and chat with you. And until next time, take care of yourselves, keep those pages turning, and cheers.